All opinions expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
There's been no mic check.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a series that has been coming to you from DCTV since 2015 in a weekly program called the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's program is pre-recorded and is called Where's the Gold? Thank you to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, Project Director, Maurice Jackson, Studio Director, Cruchet Starnes, Audio and Prompter, Dolores Harris, and we've got Winetta, who's working on the teleprompter. Last week's segment, I answered the question, Where the Gold Is, by reading from the teleprompter in DCTV's August 29, 2017 segment. The Banking Cartel tried to censor us. We're showing you that reality is very different from the Banking Cartel's lies. We're also showing you that we're able to figure out what reality is and that we're stronger than the Banking Cartel. The Banking Cartel and the black nobility at the center of the Banking Cartel do not have the world's gold reserves. They're bankrupt, and they're getting wound down peacefully. I'll repeat where the gold is. In the words of Wolfgang Struck, there's an office in New York, J.P. Morgan Chase, sitting on the treasures of the Federal Reserve New York Bank, virtually, documentary, physically. They have a TV set, CCTV, courtesy of Ferdinand Marcos, connected to 34 registered sites in the Philippines. They're looking at the gold in 34 tunnels and the giant snakes mulling around. Wolfgang Struck doesn't always tell us the truth, as we have already seen. The satellites flying overhead with their radio scanners know where the big deposits are, aside from the Philippine Plaza in the Philippines that has a big chunk of humanity's gold buried beneath it. What's more, we know where this gold is going. Dorothy Toto, a YouTube sock puppet, is trying to confuse you. In the global currency reset, we are not talking about a gold standard. We're talking about putting gold in an envelope equal to the value of the face of the amount on the bill. This is called aurum. I want to tell you about a gold audit that never happened. We told you about this 2 years ago already in the DCTV segment on March 7th, 2017. Agents of the Banking Cartel are now lying and trying to manufacture an audit of gold held by the Fed. There is no audit of gold held by the Fed. The Fed has no gold. The Banking Cartel is now using its agents to claim through a bogus Freedom of Information Act request that there was an audit of the gold held by the Fed. In reality, there has only been a fraudulent paper audit. There was never a physical audit. Silver Dollar and Coase Janssen are referring to a lie that's only a hoax. The Freedom of Information Act information is now manufactured. How do I know this? It's because the Treasury and Office of the Inspector General audit was only done by looking at a paper schedule. The qualified language of the Office of Inspector General saying that they simply did a paper audit, and the language in the schedule was removed from the internet. I referred to this language, and then I located the fact that there was only a paper audit of the gold held by using a Wayback Machine on the internet. 2 years ago, I tweeted that the Fed has no gold, and the audit that Silver Dollar and Coase Janssen are referring to is nothing but a hoax and a lie. The Freedom of Information Act information is manufactured. And I'm just waiting for this to scroll down because it's a repeat for some reason. I downloaded the Treasury audit of the Fed's gold after the link had been broken using a Wayback option on the internet. The United States Treasury does not have the United States gold reserves. The bogus Freedom of Information Act request for the audit of the U.S. monetary gold reserves was a lie. The United States Federal Register shows that the federal government no longer exists after the 1933 bankruptcy of the United States by the Banking Cartel. I have one more point to make in my prepared comments. I'm going to show you how easy it is to be duped when you follow the crowd. You need to start using your mind and using logic. The lesson starts out with a 2-hour documentary prepared by someone who wanted you to know that the story about the Twin Towers was a big lie. It's correct that the Twin Towers story was a big lie, but just because someone proved that something was a lie does not mean that this person is telling the truth about something else. This is a lesson about controlled opposition and discernment. What the documentary is lying to you about, the documentary is lying to you about who has the world's gold. Who has the world's gold? The world's gold is in the global debt facility. The global debt facility is controlled by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, and I vote the shares of the United States on the Board of Governors. Can we put the puzzle together and transition to a kinder world? We don't have all the answers. Without knowledge, we're not going to resort to the people's justice. People's responsibility for harming others, this is not forgotten. And then I'm giving you some stationery. I don't know what else is in the teleprompter. Okay. This is the letter that I wrote to the person who sent me the 2-hour documentary on 9/11. And I said to that person, you are controlled opposition. I had to sift through 2 hours and 11 minutes of your documentary to find this out. You're blaming the World Bank and IMF for the New World Order, while in fact it's just the opposite. Yes, the corrupted Secretariat is part of the New World Order, but the Secretariat of the World Bank and IMF does not control the World Bank and IMF. It's the Board of Governors and the Development Committee that are in charge. We are part of a coalition that has defeated the New World Order. Our coalition was predicted by the United States National War College. This coalition controls the wealth of the world that was deposited in a trust fund called the Global Debt Facility. The Global Debt Facility was deposited at the World Bank and IMF at the end of World War II. This was the reason that the World Bank and IMF were created. I am the overseer mandate trustee of the Global Debt Facility. I have bankrupted Jerome Powell, David Malpass, Donald Trump, and many of the corrupt members of the New World Order. I've written the minutes of the World Bank and IMF in their annual meetings and their spring meetings for many years. I have recorded liens on the Federal Reserve Bank, and there's a notarial protest which settles the claims of the world's assets in the Global Debt Facility. The chances we figure out that you are controlled opposition, that's the person who sent me that documentary, our chances are over 95%. The critical mass of humanity has saved our humanity. Who is 9/11 foreign false flag? That's the person who sent me the documentary. It's the New World Order. Learn about reality. And then I say in the teleprompter that you can get started here. And now we're talking about the prepared comments. Well, the situation is that, yes, I do have the function of being the overseer mandate trustee. That's just a placeholder, actually. I'm reaching out to everybody so that we can get started in clearing the world from the corruption. And the way we do that is very straightforward. The corruption is coming from the paper money. It's coming from the central banks. They are the New World Order. And the central banks are, well, what they do is they print paper money, and they use that paper money to buy real assets. So until we've figured out that they're just crooks, we're going to be really lending in World War III. Although the chances that we figure this out are excellent. We've got a very good track record. There are a lot of people who understand the scam, and we've been explaining the scam, how it works. I can go into it in great detail if you're interested. What happens is birth certificates and registering Social Security. Well, when you do that, that's part of the fake money, and it's fake. Whereas there's real money, and we have to replace the real money with the fake money, and it's not going to be that hard to do, actually. And we're going to do it all over the world. The way we're going to start is it's something called local currency. It's a local village which is going to use a barter system, and people are going to be exchanging their goods. The local merchants are going to be doing this. And as we develop an uncorrupt society from the grassroots up, we can get our countries back. And until we complete this process, we're going to be in transition. And that's where we are right now. We're in transition. And the assets, the gold, is really there. Many people say, well, how can I know for sure that the gold is really there? And it's not too difficult to figure that out. It's because all the crooks, they think that they're entitled to that gold, and they keep coming up with these really crazy schemes to explain why they think they're entitled to the world's gold, and they're not. And you can read the correspondence on that, and it's very it's entertaining. It goes on at great length. There's also, in addition to the gold and the other precious metals like silver and platinum, there's also something called Treaty of Versailles bonds. What happened was in the 1930s, many of the elites that owned the gold were afraid that the gold was going to be taken from them, and so what they did was they exchanged the gold for bonds that carried interest. And Jose Rizal was clever enough to gather many of these bonds in the global debt facility, and they were it was originally $270 trillion worth, but interest compounds, 4% interest per year. It compounds, and so at this point, the Treaty of Versailles bonds are worth more than $2 quadrillion. That's a lot of money. That's more money than the banking cartel can repay. So they're bankrupt, and we can wind them down, and they will be wound down. Now, the way that we are going to transition is the people that have been part of the banking cartel and part of these fake governments. If they're killed, well, they're not going to transition, are they? And we have to have a pivot. We have to do this peacefully. We have to give them amnesty. Now, you may not like it, but that's the only way it's going to happen. You can just figure that out for yourself. And that's what this person who sent me the documentary was trying to do, because they sent me a website which described who the black nobility are, who these people who had gotten the Treaty of Versailles bonds. And some of these people, well, they've been identified, and at the end of the documentary it says, we have to punish these people. Well, if you punish them, then they're not going to cooperate, and we're going to be at a standstill, and we're going to become extinct. Humanity is going to die off. The chances that we figure this out and we realize that there's only one way, and that's to have amnesty. Now, amnesty does not mean that you forgive these people. You can hold them accountable, but you simply have got to transition peacefully, or there won't be a transition, and we won't continue to exist. We'll be extinct. So, what's been going on for the last number of years, the last 5 years that I've been writing all the minutes of the annual meetings and the spring meetings, is that we're just sitting and treading water until people realize that we have to transition. We have no choice. We have to have amnesty. And so you can also go back and see exactly how the corruption exists in your world. You can see how the governments have been all corrupt. You can understand how the companies are actually governments. That's what we have. We don't have real governments. We don't have a real constitution. We did at one point in 1871, is when the bankers replaced the Constitution of 1789 with it's a corporation. And we can give you all the documentation that you need to convince yourself of it. And part of the way this corruption works is that individuals, when their births get registered, they get converted into baby companies, and the baby companies, they're going to be paying taxes over their lifetime, and the companies figure out how much they're likely to pay in taxes, and this money is then discounted back, and it gets invested on the capital markets. And there are some people who think that somehow this investment is going to be given back to the people. And unfortunately, no. There's only one way that we're going to regain what many people call our sovereignty, which is our individual personhood, that we're not companies. And that's if we all work together and we all transition. And we have to realize this. I've been writing letters to various people who somehow think that they can get a shortcut. There used to be something called a Treasury Direct account. There are any number of people who are trying to they're trying to confuse everyone. But really, we are all going to work together, and we're all going to be in the same boat, and we're all going to transition together, or we're all going to go extinct. And we can talk about this and convince everybody about it, which is what we're doing now. And that's really the long and short of it. The schemes of the banking cartel and the ways to try to convince people that things are not the way I'm telling you. Yes, the banking cartel is very imaginative, but no, there's only one thing, and either we all go extinct or we all work together. The United States military is with us, with our gold, and with the United States Constitution of 1789. We, humanity, are in charge of the world's wealth, and not the insolvent, that means bankrupt, banking cartel. I'm here to work together with everyone using the world's wealth to clean up our money system so that we can tackle the misinformation together. We don't have all the answers. Without knowledge, we're not going to resort to the people's justice. The responsibility that people have for harming others is not forgotten.